Hello everyone and welcome back to the Winter Wish channel. I have a brand new Mustang, which is not surprising if you know me. I get these every couple of months. But this mare is not the horse I actually was supposed to be getting this time. I'd won a red roan on the internet adoption back in March, I think it was. And at the event, the horse was a lot smaller than she was marketed as on the IA, which does happen. Sometimes they kind of guess heights, and that was my, every once in a while I say I don't need to get a Mustang that has a photo in the chute. I'm sure the age and the height is correct, and it never is, so lesson learned. But that's it. That horse did get a home at the adoption event. But that did mean, of course, I had to pick a second horse because that is just who I am. I couldn't have just said, you know what, maybe it's just isn't a good time to get another horse. So, here I am with the new so this is Savannah White. I've been calling her Savvy. I will be calling her Savvy. She is a 4-year-old from Muskrat Basin in Wyoming. I had to think about that for a minute. And she's a big girl. I think she's 15 hands. She might even be 15'1". She is pretty tall. So a few things I want to make a note of. She's very thin, like really thin. This is her first day here at the farm. She's going to gain a lot of weight in no time. She's going to look so much better than she does. But unfortunately, that is the reality of getting Mustangs, especially from adoption events where they have to do a lot of traveling. If you're pulling directly from the corrals, it's not as common to see this just because they're eating a lot and, they're fine. But when they have to travel, they have to stop. They're not getting a lot of hay, and sometimes it's dehydration. But she has been staying with some really great friends of mine for a couple days, so she's definitely not dehydrated. She just needs some weight and some muscle. So pardon the fact that you can basically see her spine. It's not ideal, but like I said, couple days, couple weeks of just getting a lot of food will do her some good. So we got to just sort of do things gradually. So this mare is amazing. She has a lot of good things going for her already. She's actually really brave. Her personal space bubble is very small. I can touch her body with the stick. Her problem, and this is not uncommon in any capacity, touching her with my hand, she gets a little grumpy. So you will see a few times where she pins her ears or even tries to bite at my hand. That is certainly not uncommon. And, I've dealt with this a lot with the Steens mares, the South Steens mares that I've gotten in, and they've been working through. I don't know if you guys remember Puzzle, the Palomino that I got that had some pretty severe face guarding and neck guarding. She would pin her ears and all that. She is not like that anymore. She is such a sweetheart. She's so gentle and quiet, and she's just been amazing, and she's out with my herd, and everybody's great. So this sort of behavior does go away as long as you are dealing with appropriately. Obviously, we want to be really cautious of threshold here, and we don't want to just be pushing. But, for today, being this is the first day I've worked with her, this is actually the second session. The first session I filmed as well, but it was really, really long, and it was a lot of me just sort of sitting and her biting her bugs, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna, that's not really the most helpful. This one's a little bit more kind of hands-on, and I can talk about the stuff. But, the first session days are just all about figuring out how far you can take it, and you gotta, be cautious. Like, obviously with her, she has a really small personal space bubble, so I can get close to her. I've walked behind her. I've done it, at a farther distance. I'm obviously not walking directly behind her yet because I don't know her that much yet. But working on getting the stick to touch her back, touch her legs, see where there may be some sensitive problem areas. So I just know to avoid those, and so we can work on those things a little bit slower. So you kind of have to work with the horse in front of you. I say this all the time. And just sort of take it in stride and see where you can push and just see what the problem areas are. So she's really comfortable with face touch with the stick. And first of all, when I'm dealing with these horses that are pretty kind of bold about testing you and sort of wanting to push you out of your space, I actually start with the face instead of like the hind end or anything, because I feel like I have a better visual of their facial expressions and their eyes and when their nostrils change. And obviously the ears pinning are like the big factor. But when we're dealing with like touching the side of the body and, they might get, guarded and kind of angry or frustrated or whatever. When you're touching the side, they can get you either with a hind foot or they could turn and bite you, and you're missing a lot of that facial expression, so it's harder to read. And obviously there's other body language happening where you can predict when a horse might, turn and bite you. But when I'm dealing with a brand new horse and learning that this is just their language, because it is, I want to get a better visual and be a little bit more in front of them. And if needed, I could use protective contact, but I've sort of figured her out and kind of know when she gets a little bit bold and when I need to sort of like ease up and ease back. Because like I said, I've dealt with this with a few of the other mares this year. It's just been the year of having kind of spicy mares, which is totally fine. Because when we think about horses, and, we so often talk about flight. They're flight animals. They run away and all that, but they will absolutely go into fight. And like, I'm surprised we don't see more of this in Mustang gentling, and maybe it's just something that people just don't talk about. But they very well could just act into fight instead of running away. Like she, Savvy isn't a really flighty horse, so she probably has just used fight, all of her life, which is fine. It's just something that I need to be able to adapt and be aware of. So just something I just wanted to go on a tangent of. You're going to see a few times where she pins her ears, and I'm going to do a few things. First of all, I'm going to try not to step back when she does that, so she doesn't learn to do that. But I also want to try to reinforce her before she goes to pin her ears. And, the big thing with the ear pinning and all that is just understanding where that behavior is coming from. So like what is triggering the anger and the frustration? And for her, it is the uncertainty of my hand touching her face. Because like I said, I could touch her face with a stick, like no problem. But when I go to touch her face with my hand, that's when she gets triggered by it, and that's when she puts her ears back. And sometimes it's just ears. Sometimes it's like a little bit of kind of open air biting. And, like I said, I've dealt with this with the other mares, so like I understand. But, obviously we want to try to keep that at bay and sort of, obviously we don't want that at all, but in the beginning you will probably get it if you have a horse that's a little bit more fight than flight. Like this is just the reality of gentling Mustangs, and you could have this with a rescue domestic horse, like you never know. But just being aware that, that might be what they do. Instead of running away, they might get a little sort of nippy at the air, and it's just about kind of minimizing that reaction, just like with flighty horses. Like Ezzy, Esperanza, the Grula Southsteins, I still have her in for training. She's right behind me in this video, but she's right next to Savvy in her pen. She is a very flighty horse. She's very reactive, which is why she's still in for training. She's got a lot better, but like we basically, when I'm working with her, I'm sort of gauging her progress based on how fewer spooks she has, every week, and like how quickly she's able to come back. Less so focusing on, oh, she spooked today. Like, no, yeah, like we're acknowledging it, but we're acknowledging how severe was it. So the same thing is being applied with your horses that are maybe be more bolder and a little bit fightier. Like, oh, well, how threatening was my horse today? And I hate to say that word because it makes it sound like terrifying, but like genuinely, like how much is your horse like threatening to push you out of their space? If we're getting like full charging, that's a different situation, and that requires like a whole different training program and different training plan. But if we're dealing with, more kind of like steps that may lead to that, where you have like, okay, you have charging being the worst, and then you have like actual bite, maybe striking being second worst, and then maybe like biting with full contact being, kind of the middle, and then you have sort of like biting in the air, threatening, maybe like an open mouth sort of thing being kind of, second to last. And then the last thing just being ear pins. If we have a horse that's charging and we get them to just have ear pinning, like that's a huge progress. Obviously, we don't want any of this. It's the same with like the flighty horses. Like we don't want horses spooking over small things. We want horses to be horses and react as they do. but we still want to be working towards minimizing these emotions and getting them better emotional regulation. Like, that is what our goal is when we're gentling Mustangs. It's not just being able to halter, lead, catch, pick up feet, trailer load. Like, those are like the old tip requirements. You know, that's great, and that is things that you need to do, but there's so much beyond doing that. Like, I can do that with, you know, well, I can't do all those things with opponent, but I can do a few of those things. But it's like, she's not gentled yet. Like, if there was an emergency and I needed to take her and like bring her somewhere, I couldn't do that, you know. So like, there's steps to these things. But anyway, with the whole biting thing, back to that, you're gonna see in this video, she does sort of threaten to bite me a few times, and I'm just kind of being, well, I want to stand my grounds. I want her to know that she can't necessarily communicate that to me. But I'm really just looking for more softness to it. So if I'm touching her face, obviously I want to just then click and give her feed when her ears are forward and she's relaxed and she's confident. So she learns that that's the correct response to get food rewards. But she's not doing the ear pinning to get the food rewards. She's doing it because she's feeling insecure. So that insecurity and that discomfort is going to improve itself through every session where she feels safe once we're done. You know, like, as I'm working with her now, she's like, who the heck are you? Like I said, this is her first session. She does not know who I am. I don't really know who she is. Like, there's a lot of language that's being communicated here, and I am okay with her pinning her ears and nipping at me, as long as she's not injuring me. But again, I wouldn't put myself in a situation where I think that's going to happen. I would set something up and change it, you know, or maybe it happens once and then you go, crap, I need to set this up and change it. Then that's different. But I'm okay with her giving me emotions because I want them to be very crystal clear so I can work through them. I don't want her to hide these things, and then all of a sudden down the road she like has an explosion and I'm like, where the heck did that come from? You know, I want her to be really clear about her emotions and how she's feeling. So right now I'm just working on a few different things. I'm working on touching her with the stick. Like I said, she's comfortable with that. And then feeding her hay. And I know I don't have my mic on. That's been an ongoing problem. I should just buy a new one. I am doing a voiceover for this one, so you cannot hear my clicks, my clucks, my sounds. But I am trying to sort of charge the clicker, as they call it, and get her to learn that that click sound is associated with food. And what I'm doing right now is really just shoveling the food in her mouth so that she has hay in her mouth and she doesn't try to bite me. And she's not just like maliciously biting me, chasing me, biting me, by the way. Like, she's been awesome. This is the first day I've had her. She's had a foal. So sometimes those types of mares can be a little bit more guarded and just bolder because they had to be at one point in their life. So right now I'm just trying to get her to interact with my hand at all. And then I am offering food as a reinforcement. So we're starting to introduce some R+ here. So whenever I'm working with the Mustangs and just working with horses in general, I do a combination of both. I do negative reinforcement and I do positive reinforcement. And I try to be very clear about which quadrant I'm using, just so the horses are aware. But I find that my guys have adapted pretty well to being able to use both training methods, you know, in a specific training session. So I'll do some like touching her, clicking, and then treating. I'll do some with the lunge whip, you know, just touching and then releasing. So we're just doing a little bit of negative reinforcement there. So there's a lot of different sort of training styles at play here, so I can sort of figure out what works best for her. And, you know, I want to use as much positive reinforcement as possible without overusing it. Not to say that that's really a thing, but I like how some of these horses that aren't like super, super heavily food motivated have like a really good regulation to them. I've got a new mare, and that needs her own video series as well because she's really cool. She's from the New Holland, the group of 7 Mustangs that ended up at the auction, and they were actually repossessed by the BLM and then adopted out through Stacy Garner in Pennsylvania, and I got one of those mares. I've named her Stage. She actually has an owner now, and she's still with me, but she is very food motivated and very bold and sort of pushy. So we have to spend so much time working on calm default. So having a horse that's not super motivated, like super food motivated, that has like a kind of a natural calm default is like really nice to work with. So we're just like, I don't want to overdo it with the food just yet because I want to keep that really natural calm default like at play here, because that's just going to save us time for having to train that. So that's really nice. But besides that, back to the training, because I haven't really talked about what I'm doing. Just like I said, working on the stick, food. Sometimes I'm playing around with a couple things here. Obviously, touch, do the hard thing. So have the stick touch her, click, remove the stick, take that hard thing away, and then reinforce her and give her the food. I'm also playing around with, can I keep the stick on your back and feed you at the same time? Because some horses actually do not like that. They don't like having the scary thing touch them and take the hay or food or whatever it is, whatever the reinforcement is. Sometimes they're like, okay, I did the thing, now please take the scary thing off of me. So I just wanted to sort of test and see where we're at with that. And she did not mind at all. So that's really great. So now I'm just working on face touch again and feeding. And I'm just sort of like I said, she has a really small personal space bubble. So she doesn't need to have me back away 80 feet to give her a release of pressure. So I'm still, as much as I'm doing clicker training here, she is new and I'm still trying to give her a release of pressure and using that negative reinforcement component as well. I've got my other horses like trying to get this hay, even though they have their own hay. They're so bad. But yeah, she's picking up on this really well. Actually, after this session, I wanted to get a video for the group chat that we all got Mustangs from the Doswell, Virginia event. And I sent a video of her after this where I was just touching her face and clicking and treating and touching her face. And she was really good. She had very little like aversive reaction to that, which was really nice. So she's definitely learning. So right there, I went back with the stick because she got a little bit nervous about my hand. So right there, I don't know if you guys saw that. She got mad and bit out, and she managed to bite the hay. So I kind of did not mind that at all because she thought about biting me and then was like, you know what? There's food right here. I'll just put my anger out on this hay. Because like I said, once she feels confident and comfortable with me, and she's not that far away from that, I give her like a week before this all stops. Once she's confident and knows I'm not going to do anything to her, she is going to stop this behavior. It will stop. So when we're working with Mustangs and they're at this level, say you have this identical horse right here where you're touching them and they're biting or trying to, or they're getting frustrated or whatever. They're more so, I think it's like both annoyance and stress and confusion. That's sort of why they act out and kind of do that sort of pinning ears or biting or whatever it is that it might be. Obviously anything beyond those two things is a different situation. I'm not saying if your horse is charging and striking you to just keep doing this. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But if you have a horse that's like pinning their ears at touch for the first, day or so, or trying to nip out at something or whatever, they just get frustrated. Don't overreact to that. I think a lot of people say, oh, when a horse does X, Y, Z, you need to send them running or run laps or whatever. The mare in front of me here, Savvy, the reason she is doing this is because she genuinely does not understand. So there, she did it again, and then she fixed it. So then I took the pressure away. So she genuinely does not understand why I am touching her head. Like, for real, she does not know. So not only that, but she doesn't trust that I'm doing it. Like, she's like, I don't mind that you're close to me, but I don't want you touching me. So she obviously needs to learn that she can't be doing that and that I need to be touching her head because we need to halter and do all the things that a domestic horse does. But we need to come, meet them in the middle here and have some empathy for the reactions that they give us in a lot of situations, especially when they're so new. She has no idea what the expectations are here. The only thing she's ever known is that when something was annoying or she didn't like it or whatever, her reaction was to bite it or pin her ears at it or whatever. Like, she's 4. She's a 4-year-old horse that's been untouched, It's like people so often forget. And like, yes and no. Like, we say, oh, we're getting Mustangs. People know that they haven't been handled. At least, if you're getting one directly from the BLM or whatever. But like, we forget, like, this is, a year-old horse, a 10-year-old horse, a 15-year-old horse, a 5-year-old, whatever, that has had no handling aside from getting whatever, branded and vaccines and dewormer, whatever it is. Like, there are so many things here that, like, people just forget. Like, this horse for 4 years has used that as the solution to her problems. And I'm not saying that we should allow her to continue to use, ear pinning and biting as a solution to her problems, but I'm not going to scream at her for saying, this is how I've communicated in the past. Like, I know you communicate this way. I don't want you doing that, so I'm going to advise that you do something different. Oh my God, this is when Chase got his leg, like, too high up. Oh my God. They just want to be involved so bad. Chase is my saddlebred. He is not a Mustang, but every single other horse you will ever see that's walking around or in pens or whatever, they are all Mustangs. He's like my only domestic that I'll ever have again. He was my first horse, so he's not going anywhere, but that's why his neck is like 80 miles long, in case anybody's like, what Mustang is that? Yeah, no, not a Mustang, but everybody else is. But anyway, she moved over here, so I just went over. We did a little bit more. So let's see. Touching, good, and food immediately. So because she's ear pinning and all that, I don't want to stay on her head for too long because clearly it makes her uncomfortable. So we're just working on, small, quick acts of duration. And this was significantly better. And I'm going to actually pause here because the video is about to end, and I'm going to add in the end part where I sent it to that group chat so you guys can see. And obviously we're going to continue to talk about, I'm going to very lightly use the word aggression because I think that this is very minor. But we're going to continue to talk about that with her because it's going to be really cool to kind of watch this unfold because she is such a quiet horse. So she just needs to kind of figure her life out and learn the best ways to communicate. But hopefully you guys follow along on this series of Gentling Savvy. Girl. All right, this is future me here, and I decided to combine day 1 and day 2 sessions in one video because I worked with her again today. This is the second day of her being home, and she did so well. I ended up ending it really quickly, so I figured, might as well just add this to the end of this video. So this is not the end. This now is. So major improvements from yesterday. I think sort of the focus and the premise of this video is dealing with some negative emotions to touch, which is very, very common. And we see this response in a lot of ways through, obviously, fight, flight, freeze. So this girl just likes to kind of activate fight a little bit, and she gets a little bit spicy about touch. And she is improving tremendously today. So here I'm just working on adding some duration, so just getting her used to that forehead touch. She did really well, and then when I went to touch lower to her nostrils, that's when she got a little grumps. So, and more grumps. So I'm going to work on that a little bit today in this session, as well as prepping for her tag removal, so sort of working towards getting closer to her cheek and then obviously up on her neck. And these are all things I can touch with the long whip. So I would advise doing so just because you really don't know the reactions of the horses that you're working with. And, it's just a good sort of practice, even when you have these horses like Savvy here, who, like I said, I got yesterday. settled right in, is really quiet. Like, she's fabulous in a lot of ways. She's the type that you feel like you could go up and like pet and brush. She's still, a little timid, and I wouldn't do that just yet, but she's definitely one of the easier Mustangs I've had, which is a nice change of pace, considering I've gotten a lot of really tough mares this year. But sort of just working on getting them used to touch from a distance is just a really great way to avoid their any big reactions that they might offer, like striking, kicking, biting, anything. And, obviously this mare has offered to bite a couple times. She hasn't actually made contact or anything. It's more of just like a threat, but it's still something I take deeply into consideration, knowing that at any point it could escalate to something worse if I drive her crazy. So just that's kind of what we're working on today. So yeah, I would recommend, if you've got a horse that's, even if she's like this, where you feel like you can go up and touch them. I mean, obviously like hand boops is fine, and like touching, little everything, like that's fine. But I would advise getting like a lunge whip or something long to sort of touch, the face and the neck and everything, just to make sure that they're not super sensitive, because some of them are, or at least some of them may start that way. So yeah, I'm just working on getting her to a couple things. Obviously, take hay from me, which she's getting pretty good at this point. She's just getting first cut Timothy. I'm pulling it straight out of her hay bag. It's what she is familiar with, and she likes it. If you have a horse that's not as motivated to eat, Timothy, which is kind of boring and they get it all the time, or they should get it all the time, you can obviously up the value to something higher like alfalfa, but I try not to use alfalfa if I don't need to. I try to just stick with what they eat. It kind of, for me, it keeps, the stress levels down a bit. They get a little excited about alfalfa. Puzzle, my South Steens mare that you guys have hopefully seen some videos of. I'm going to do some more updates on her, but she's out with my herd and everything. But anyway, she gets really excited about the alfalfa, and it's funny and it's cute because she makes like little, whinnies and nickers at it. But she gets a little too excited about the alfalfa, so I have to be like careful when I'm working with her with that. So yeah, if I can start them on Timothy, first cut or whatever, second cut or whatever, that is sort of the goal. It's a really nice way to sort of set the foundation for clicker training and all that. So yeah, I'm just working on, and she lost interest there, so I take that as feedback that she just needs a minute. So I kind of give her a minute, and then I just like go up and offer, ask for some, I cue her essentially to re-engage, and she takes a minute, I think. And then she sort of, the only problem with doing voiceovers is I'm not living in the moment here, so I'm like, what did she do? Trying to predict, what's she going to do next? But I think she does re-engage here. It's a good girl. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, that was good. So, I'm kind of reading the language. I know she's a little ear expressive and everything, and here she is playing with the camera, and I adore when they're curious like this and want to kind of figure life out, and I do fix this in a second. But I always love when they are checking out their environment in a way that's like really productive, and she's definitely a bolder type of horse, she's brave, and like I said, she is thin. I did find I was sent photos of her in the wild, and she looked so good. So I cannot wait for her to fill out and sort of develop some more muscle and everything. She's going to look pretty striking. She already does look striking, so she's going to look even better with some actual weight on her, not just skin and bone. And we had more bug issues again, but she did pretty good with the bugs tonight. It was a cooler evening, which is always good to get a little bit of a break from the heat and the bugs. And yeah, she just sort of walked away, and I'm not gonna like make the right thing easy and wrong thing hard here. I'm not gonna like chase her and anything and force her to stand. I'm gonna let her just come back for a minute, and she does. It's funny though, when she walks up to me, she walks up with such like anger and rage. Her ears are just back, and then she's like, oh, you have hay, I'm fine. And it's like such a slow walk, and I know, like I said, it's part of it's that she's feeling a little ouchy and sore from her short trim, but still, it's quite funny to see her just sort of like have a little bit of that boss mare face, try to push me around, and I'm just like, I'm the one with the food. But yeah, she's doing a lot better today with all of those emotions. She's a little bit more regulated, and that's gonna get even better as the days progress. And, you know, if it doesn't improve itself, I'll obviously stick her on like Mare Magic or something just to kind of take the edge off a little bit. But I do want to actually give her a genuine try to, you know, more than like 2 days to sort of figure out everything. Because, you know, Esperanza, who I have behind her there, is been here for like 5 months, and she's still learning emotional regulation. So it varies on the horse, but obviously I'm going to give her plenty of time to sort of figure things out. As long as she's not actively trying to eat me or murder me, we will be just fine. And she's not. Like, she just gives these little threats where she, like, bites at the air or pins her ears. And, like, those are very important pieces to this communication, and they are not taken lightly. But also, I try not to be over dramatic in any corrections. In fact, I'm not making any corrections about that. My corrections are either my release or my timing of reinforcements. Like, that's what's going to help her figure out that she can't quite do that. Especially because they, like I said, they're just such minor little things. Like, I'm not worried about the little ear pinning right now. Like, that's just going to resolve itself. So my goal for this session was to work on getting her tag off. I'm going to give you guys a spoiler alert. I do take it off, and that is at the end of this video. But I'm working on just getting to that part of her neck. And yesterday I did mess around with the tag a little bit with the long whip, and she was a little bit nervous about that, like me playing with the tag. So I kind of took that into account, that the tag itself and kind of when you're untying it, that rope tightens a little bit around their neck and stuff. Not like tightens as in like, you know, the pressure, the rope will pull from one side of the neck. So it's not actually tightening around their neck. I just want to make note of that. But the way that these tags are designed is they are roped through a 3-hole bracket, and then unfortunately, but also it was fine, both ends of this one actually are knotted. So I had to, it didn't matter which side I was on. Sometimes one side's easier than the other. They were both knotted. So here I am working on getting the tag off, and I'm just weaving it through. And she did so good just staying put and standing. And I was able to get it off. And I gave her a big old jackpot. And then that was it. I completely ended the session there. I just wanted her to know that she did a really good job. And she just went back to eating after. So she did fabulous. And I'm looking forward to working with her more.